Thank you so much for joining us for this very important conversation around diversity and the important roles of allies at the office. To put it simply, diversity matters. Don't take my word for it, just look at the latest research. It has been proven that companies fare better financially when they have a diverse workforce. So why aren't we seeing more companies embracing it? We need an array of voices from various backgrounds, body types, races, and genders to join the conversation so we can push the culture forward. It's not enough to just sit and listen, but we all must get involved. We need to take action because there is real power in inclusion. So please welcome our panelists to the stage. Woo! Woo! Hello. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
Hi. You guys are here to talk about how we can make inclusion the norm and not the exception. So thank you for being here. But before we get started, I want you guys to brag a little bit. Bragging is good. Let everybody know your name, your title, and what you do.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sahara Pines, and I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm an employment lawyer with 20 years of experience helping businesses with their employment issues, so not having their employees sue them is sort of the basic. I help with hiring and firing, employment documents, new hire packets, and doing diversity and sexual harassment trainings as well in terms of building company culture. So super happy to be here and look forward to meeting you all.
Hi, everyone. My name is Miata Johnson. Oh, maybe I need to go a little. We have a creative agency, myself and my partner over there, who's also my sister, called MVD Inc. And we focus on strategic partnerships, integrated marketing, and event production. We're known for helping to revitalize and revolutionize how people really hear music in the event space.
Hello. My name is Ali Maki, and I'm very excited to be here. This is my first Create, Cultivate. Been a fan for a long time, so to be here with these amazing women is just insane to me. I'm an actress, and I'm also the founder of Asian American Girl Club, which is an awesome, empowering place for Asian American females. And most recently, I played Giggle McDimples in Toy Story 4, which is very fun and exciting. So yeah, good to see you guys.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bhavagna Badiprolu. I am vice president of a company called Blended Strategy Group. We are a strategic celebrity and influencer marketing agency out of Los Angeles. I'm trying to speak into this mic, but I'm very loud, so sorry, guys. My background is actually in talent and in brand and making partnerships that are strategic and interesting in marketing and sort of really lean into a diverse and inclusive marketplace and world for all of us to look at. So I'm really excited to be on this panel. I respect everybody here, and I'm excited to hear their thoughts.
Hi, everyone. My name is Masa David. I am co-founder of MVD Inc., my sister and partner, Miata Johnson. As she mentioned, we're a creative agency. We work in the entertainment business. We do a lot of experiential marketing, event production, and public relations as well.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Masa, I'd like to start with you.
Oh, no.
You know, the words diversity and inclusion are so often placed right together. Mm-hmm. So people think that it's an automatic. But we know that's not the case. Just because you have diversity, you don't have inclusion. Mm-hmm. You know, someone once said that diversity is being invited to the party, but inclusion is being asked to dance. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that we need to pay attention to that distinction?
I think it's important to pay attention to that distinction because diversity on its own can only be for purely optics, whereas inclusion is, checks certain boxes, but in addition to that, you're making sure that people's voices are being heard and they are being a part of the conversation, not just being the topic of the conversation.
Thank you so much for that. And I want to ask if anyone wants to jump in about how do you think we can create a sense of belonging in the workplace? Because, studies have shown that having a sense of belonging and feeling safe is the #1 need for all employees.
Sure, I'll jump in on that one. Doing a lot of diversity training in workplaces, I find that the easiest way to start is in bite-sized pieces. So in your small groups, in your teams. If you're in a large company and you have a smaller team or department, making sure that you include people in meetings that they may not normally be included in, so that you're hearing different perspectives and hearing their voice is a great place to start. If you're in a smaller company, you have the opportunity to, again, broaden and really have their voices heard in a meaningful way.
Anybody else want to add on? Well, let's move right along then. Miata. Yes. I'm going to put this question towards you.
Okay.
You are the president and co-founder of your own business, and you are providing visibility and paving the path for women in high exec positions. How do you feel about that role, and how does it influence the staffing decisions you make?
I think when we are making hires, the first thing is, first and foremost, we're looking for the best candidate. I think that that's important when we have the conversation about diversity and inclusion. For some reason, people start to think that you're also looking for a candidate that may not be qualified, and that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
For us, it's extremely important to make sure that they understand our DNA. But for me, the two things I think that can't be taught is working hard, your work ethic, and your integrity. Everything else can be taught, but if you don't have those two things, especially in entertainment, they will eat you up alive. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've been able to survive this long.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Allie.
Hello.
As you mentioned, you are the voice of Giggle McDimples.
Hey, you said
in
it.
Toy Story 4.
She was saying she was nervous to say the name.
Yes, Giggle McDimples was a
You
little
did it.
challenge for me. Oh, by the way, Toy Story 4 just hit $1 billion, just earned $1 billion. Woo!
Crazy.
Okay, it's a huge accomplishment.
Crazy.
What I'd like to know from you is, how do you think it would have affected you had you seen more actors that look like you growing up?
I mean, in so many ways. And truly, one of my life missions now is to be able to give the next generation of young women growing up what I'm just learning right now as a person in my 30s, which is sad to me. And I love the journey that I've had, and there's been plenty of ups and downs, and I'm just so grateful for every opportunity. But I do look back and I look at my 10-year-old self who did not feel worthy of being in any room, at any table, at any time. And it makes me really sad to look back at my younger self and see that she felt that way. So that's pretty much what Asian American Girl Club is all about, is providing a seat for these girls. And Giggle McDimples, the greatest thing about it is seeing these little 8-year-old girls that send me pictures of them dressed as a cop. And this is their reality now. They're like, yeah, Giggle McDimples, of course I could be a cop, and that's so incredible. And I bow down to the people at Pixar who, gave her that job because they knew it would be important to inspiring young women. So yeah, it inspires everything I do. I still see myself as that 8-year-old girl who doesn't feel like she belongs, but we're changing that narrative a lot. So it's exciting.
Fantastic. I can really relate to what you say. Did anyone have anything they wanted to add about that? I know we've all probably felt at one time that we had not seen ourselves in certain roles.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. I think that I've grown up in a world where I consumed so much entertainment and I've consumed so much content where people don't look like me. And even now, looking at the way that things are slowly starting to move, both in the entertainment industry and film and television, but also in branding, is really exciting. It's exciting to be in a time where people have different platforms and opportunities, and those are giving more and more room for differences and inclusion to be out in the world and to be seen, and to have rooms like this is really valuable, I think.
Thank you for that. Sahara,
Yes.
we've all seen, all of you out there have seen where these corporations are being called out on social media for not having enough diversity or making diversity mistakes. I wanted to see how you felt about that and how you feel companies should handle that.
So I am definitely not a social media expert, but I think it's a great thing that consumers have a direct line to the brands that they're purchasing.
Absolutely.
So they used to spend so much money in marketing and focus groups behind the scenes, and still do. But now if you do something wrong, you're going to hear about it. And if you do something great, you're going to hear about it directly from the mouths of the people that are consuming your product. So I think where it relates to sort of messing up in the diversity realm or any other realm is taking the responsibility and giving us a sneak peek into how you're doing better, right? You have this amazing opportunity to tell stories and show how you're remedying the problem, whether it's bringing in someone to do training and showing pics of or video of the diversity training behind the scenes, whether it's featuring maybe some of your vendors who are diverse vendors, or in line with your company values. You have an opportunity to sort of give those behind the scenes types of views that you didn't before social media.
Thank you for that. Wagner,
She just gave me that look.
as a marketing and branding agency, you are forging authentic partnerships with
Everyone
people.
loves that word here, guys, authentic.
Authentic, yes, with brands and influencers. I'm going to ask you this question that you didn't necessarily want me to ask. I don't want any names though, but has there ever been a time that a celebrity or an influencer has passed on an opportunity for reasons
Yes.
around diversity? Okay, that's as
That
far
is
as
the
we're getting with
extent
that
of
one.
which
No
I
names.
would answer that question just because I do work for a branding agency. We work with a lot of talent. We work with a lot of clients. Do I think that there are moments in time that we've all seen publicly where talent has said, I don't want to work on this because of an inclusivity issue or a diversity issue or a personal integrity issue? Of course, you see those things out in PR. And I think that that type of advocacy is very important. It's important for the general public to remember that these opportunities that you're given as you develop a platform to be thoughtful of the decisions that you're making. But the one distinction I do want to call out on a panel like this is that the opportunities are different. You know, when you see a big A-list celebrity say no to something very publicly and go out into the world and publicize it, sometimes it's a punchy PR moment and it's great and it's important, but there is someone who is the 15th lead actress on a television show of color, and she may not have the ability to say no to these opportunities because they are not coming forward as many times as they come forward for someone else. So I do think the advocacy is important. I do think that it creates conversation, which is always important to move things forward. But I also don't think that that standard should be required of all people of color when that standard is not required on the other side of the table.
That's a really good point. Thank you for that. Did you have something to add?
Well,
Sahara?
yeah, because we were talking last night about this, and I think the flip side, right, is that some of these B, C, D list talent also might not want to accept a position like a statement like that or a role because it's too controversial, right? And they may not want to be perceived in a certain way. So those are like individual sort of career-based decisions that the talent has to make.
Yeah, I totally agree they are individual decisions, but I do think there are times that the decisions are just a little bit different for different people who are in sort of impacted communities where, again, their choices are limited from the beginning parts of these decisions, so the decisions that they make are driven by the experiences that they have, and sometimes they want to be part of a big movie or they want to be part of a big brand deal, and they can't necessarily be the ones to stand up in the moment. I just think it shouldn't be held against anyone, because ultimately the same thing is true in any business, whether it's entertainment or it's music or anything else, right? If you're a junior level person, there's a certain amount of standing up that you can do in the moment, and then there's a certain amount of standing up that you can do once you're the president or CEO of your own company.
Very true. Good point. Good discussion. Good discussion. I'd like to move it now, the conversation, to talk about allies in the workplace. And we've all had them. So I'm going to start with you where we ended. And I'd like to know, there's an old adage that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a group. And so I'd like for you to think about or help us understand how you think allies can help us really make some progress in this field.
Yeah, I think allies are so, so, so important. I was very lucky to have a strong female mentor in the start of my career when I was at a very large talent agency, and it was kind of a big boys club. And then I moved on to another company that was run by two older white gentlemen, and I was the only person in a group of 15 who was a woman of color. And so I think that allies and sort of leadership, lending a hand, is very, very important to the discussion. And I think that the way that we have to look at it is that we are all a group. I think that it's important to not say, okay, I'm an Indian woman, I want to help another Indian woman. Like, I see it as, I'm a woman of color who has been able to have a certain level of success, and it's important to me that I'm reaching out to all women, whether they are of color or not, and I'm reaching out to all sorts of ethnicities, and I'm thinking, of course, of who the best candidate is for things, who the best person is to listen to for a certain thing, but that I'm also not boxing myself into such a narrow group that I'm ultimately not including someone else.
Thank you. So Miyata, you have developed an ally in your co-founder and partner, business partner, Masa, which is great. But you also have this initiative, Dope Africans. Can you tell me how you're creating allies in the community through this initiative?
Sure. The idea of Dope Africans was born about 2 years ago because there was definitely a need for camaraderie and people having some sense of community in the music space. There were a lot of Africans that felt alienated and didn't really feel comfortable in both spaces because they were American but also had African roots. And there are a lot of executives, some in quite powerful positions, that didn't have somewhere to spit ideas, look for ways to collaborate, etc. So we created this initiative called Dope Africans, and this is the first year, and it's done extremely well. And it's basically formed a sense of community within the music space that you can understand and love Afro beats and that culture, but still love hip hop. And you can collaborate, whether it's with film or television or fashion. So we're really, really excited about it. It's my passion project.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
So Masa, can you speak about that as well? I know that Dope Africans is also about celebrating all of us. And what I'd like to know is, what do you do to ensure that we are pushing the needle forward in inclusion and diversity within that group?
I think we make sure that we're very intentional. I think when you are starting an initiative and you want to be inclusive, you also have to make sure that you're targeted. Because you can be inclusive and not have the right people be a part of something if they're not passionate about it, if they're not supportive of it, if they don't necessarily understand it. So I think with Dope Africans, we want to be as inclusive as possible, not just only have Africans be a part of it, but people that support African culture, that are invested on the continent, in the market, and really appreciate what we have to bring to the table.
Thank you. So Alec, in order to see real change, and I say this all the time, we must be willing to be uncomfortable. And that sometimes means we have to advocate for someone who's not being treated fairly or given a fair opportunity. Is there a time that you've had to do that, or someone has had to do that for you?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all the time. And I kind of look back to my journey of being in audition rooms. I've been in audition rooms since I was, I don't know, maybe 10 years old. And I just remember us all being, it'd be like me with other Asian American women, and I remember no one would talk to each other. And it was very much this air of, oh, like, you're the enemy, like, I'm not talking to you. And it was a very kind of hostile environment. And as I kind of grew older, I started to restructure my thoughts about that room of being in there and why we were kind of conditioned to not speak to each other or feel like we were the enemies. And I kind of started to reframe my mindset about that, the industry was kind of training us that there's only one slot for one of you, so Hunger Games style, eat each other alive for it, And that is what they want you to think, and that's what the kind of media trains you to believe, that your sister right next to you is the enemy. And that's such a terrible and negative and really dangerous way to think. So I think through this whole last couple of years, I've really tried to restructure everything and say, like, look right next to you. Like, this is the woman I should be talking to. What can we do together? So I think it's all about advocating for each other and really changing that narrative of, like, who's really gonna have your back and how we can do this together. So, yeah.
Does anybody else want to join about that advocacy? I know advocates have saved my life, and every day I'm depending on people just to be a voice and help me out. So anytime you have the opportunity to do that, that is a major step. Well, let's move on for a second. Sahara, I want to talk about, there's a lot in the news about Silicon Valley and their struggle to have diversity. I mean, it's such an issue right now. In 2016, there was not one black female at any of the top 10 companies. Three of the companies did not have any African Americans whatsoever, but the diversity looks bad all the way around. I would like your thoughts on what is causing this bottleneck. Why are we not seeing the progress that we would all like to see?
How much time do we have? I mean, those statistics are shocking,
Yes.
even to me who works in the space. But I think to touch on a point that Masa said earlier is just making sure that the right people are in the room, because to have diversity conversations without white men founders is pointless, right? We can sit and we can talk amongst ourselves, but unless you bring the current decision makers in, we're not really going to get anywhere. If you're a founder of a business, the leadership has to start at the top, and not only focusing on hiring, but also on retention, because it's easy to bring people in the door. Hopefully they're qualified individuals, but it's easy to, or maybe not so easy in some spaces, to bring people in. But you can check that box, but you have to get them to stay and to feel like they're a contributor and they're being valued at the company level. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about how to do that, but it has to start from the top, and there has to be accountability from the top as well. So it can't just be an initiative that you roll out at the beginning of the year and say, this is what we're going to do, but there have to be regular check-ins, and there has to be someone who in their day-to-day job is tasked with making sure that this is one of the metrics for success in your business. And I think that that's the part that sometimes falls off.
Very, very true. I would love to know you all's thoughts about how we change these statistics.
Wow, I think you're right. Where do we start? I think that your point about retention is extremely important, and relearning. There has to be intent, like what Masa mentioned.
Yes.
If you don't want to affect change or cause change within your organization, it's not going to happen. We, in the past, have worked with quite a few different Fortune 500 companies, and they will bring us in the room because it's great for optics. But if you're not hearing us and understanding that you actually want to affect change and you want to put practices that will make sure that you also celebrate and put people in positions that actually can contribute to that, I don't think it's going to change. Another thing I think is we're not talking to these founders on level that sometimes they may understand. If they understand that this will affect your profits,
Yes.
they will actually, that is going to be the one that's going to activate the change.
Okay. And can you guys comment on this, but also think about how do we hold these companies accountable? Right now, we mentioned social media earlier. It seems as if sometimes the people on Twitter are doing a better job of holding corporations accountable than people that are within the organizations.
Oh, I totally agree. I think that there's scenarios I agree with both the women that have spoken thus far, and I think that retention is super important. The one build I would say to that is not just getting people in the door and retained, but getting people to the higher and higher level positions. I'm at a place in my career where my peers are people who have moved from the middle management tier up into an executive tier of their career. And that shift has been very difficult for a lot of my peers and a lot of my colleagues who are women of color across the board in different types of organizations, particularly in the entertainment industry, because there is the optics of getting someone into management or getting someone in the door and saying like, oh, look, they're not just an assistant, they're not just a coordinator, but it's about actually putting in the work to help people get past that moment in time when they are just in the management space. And just to circle back on where we started with the Silicon Valley, I grew up out here. I know what diversity looks like in these companies, and it's a very specific kind of diversity. And I think that a large part of that does come from the inability for the top to make sure to get people at the bottom also trained up to a place where they can have those roles, so that it's not just, oh, we're giving someone a handout, but we're really making sure that there are people who have been trained and who have had a hand in sort of getting to a place where the executive levels look like this stage instead of just the lower levels or the management levels of a business.
Bhavagna, your point is like so on point, because most of these snaps, most of these companies, most of all of our companies, we're not doing like rocket scientists, right? Like you mentioned it earlier, that almost everything can be trained. So you're training for certain things, but you're not necessarily training for other things. So that there's definitely an opportunity there.
Yeah, and I think that for what I've seen in big, large studios and big record labels and in big businesses in general is people get to the management tier and then they watch as other people around them sort of grow at a faster pace, or they seem to grow and then it becomes a little suspect, and then they want to leave because they have a better opportunity somewhere else where they're in a space that's more and more inclusive. But the reality is, the change does need to be made in those big businesses and in those big corporations where people stay and they say, no, you have to get me to the next level. You have to do for me what you do for everyone else.
Really good point, really good point. I do want to ensure that we have time from our lovely audience to ask some questions. And I will ensure, Masa, that you answer the first one. I'm sorry we didn't get to you, please. But do we have some questions out there? We're going to have, thank you so much. We have some mic runners who will get a mic to you. I see two of you now.
Hi there, my name is Megan Myers. I'm with Special Olympics International. More importantly, I'm with Danielle Liebel, who is a retired Special Olympics athlete because she passed the California bar in May and is now a practicing commercial real estate lawyer in San Francisco. So I think for people with intellectual disabilities, oftentimes it's not even part of the conversation,
Correct.
The diversity and inclusion. We're in a 5-year, 50th anniversary Inclusion Revolution campaign.
Yes.
And I think what we find oftentimes is we're not even having a seat at the table. So just wanted your thoughts on that and how to sort of have a louder voice. We're a huge organization, 6 million athletes around the world. How do we become, part of the conversation more so? Because I think we're doing ourselves a disservice if we don't.
Absolutely. Masa,
Thank
can
you.
you speak on that first?
Wow, that's a big question. How can you guys make sure that your voices are being heard? I think social media is huge.
I do.
Always making sure that you guys are tapping into, your members and making sure that you maybe pick a day where you bring awareness to that issue. Press, for sure. That always helps to make sure that you're pushing your own narrative and also bringing awareness. And then I think really advocating to get people in positions that can make sure that they're speaking on your behalf and making sure that they are advocating for your needs is really important.
That really brings it full circle. We talked about the power of allies, so ensuring you have allies at maybe different organizations that can advocate within the organization. Thank you for that.
And can I add strategic partnerships? I think with companies, probably larger companies in this case, who care about this issue and can go to you for a pipeline of qualified candidates and know that they're getting good quality because they understand the folks that you're working with.
Thank you. We had another question. One here and one here.
Hi, my name is Tania Herrera, and what I really want to say is I worked in the top media conglomerates in the US and love my jobs. But sometimes I feel that when we say diversity and inclusion is, I'm Mexican, we have a Cinco de Mayo party at work, right? By the way, it's not Independence Day in Mexico.
Right.
So what I really think we should teach, especially older corporations, because startups are getting better at this. Look at Create and Cultivate. This is a perfect example. I worked in very old companies, amazing dream companies, but I can tell you that they don't teach you how we think. As a third world country Mexican, I can tell you that I always felt lucky to have a job. So I wouldn't dare to ask for anything. Because, mija, felicidades, tienes trabajo. And that's what they teach you. So also it's like, yeah, I felt very happy to be in the room and just being in the room and being the only Mexican in the room there. I can tell you I've been in 3 companies in the media world where I was the only one speaking Spanish. And everybody's beautiful accent. I'm like, thanks, but hear what I have to say. But what I really feel is teaching how we think, what really diversity means, and it doesn't mean that I need to eat tacos. It doesn't mean that I need Mexican food at my job. It means that you need to understand how we were raised, what matters to us. And I just wish that was taught more, because I feel we put a Band-Aid by saying the Mexican group, the bicultural group, the Cinco de Mayo day. I'm like, I could care less. I want to grow. I just wasn't taught to speak up because I just feel very lucky to be in the US.
I so appreciate what you just said. Really, I think everyone needed to hear that. Thank you so much. Essentially what you're saying is that it is up to all of us. We have a responsibility to learn about other cultures and not trivialize it into one particular holiday or the way an accent someone has, but to actually understand, put yourself in someone else's shoes, creating real empathy and understanding how someone else would function in the workplace. So thank you for that, because we all want to figure out how we can make things better. So bravo to that. We have another question up front, please.
Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for being here and speaking. So my name is Gabrielle Leanne Gant, and I created Black Girls Brunch. And so I just wanted to speak to you about your launch of Dope Africans. What we're finding is brands don't want to partner with something that's called Black Girls Brunch because it seems very exclusive, but reality is it's also creating an inclusive space for Black women who often feel invisible because we're always the only one in the room. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and I could go from my house to my job to the grocery store and not see another Black woman. So there was a definite need for this space, but it's very hard for us to articulate that to brands that are run by non-people of color and getting brand partnerships. I'm actually honored to be here because I am the scholarship winner, so this brand is paying attention, but it's been like 2 years of telling brands hey, I have 150 Black women on a Sunday. can we get product? Can we get, this is like a dynamic group that makes $40,000 to $100,000. They're great, a market. So how are you using your platform to like create access to bring brands into the spaces that can see your attendees and the people that you're supporting through Dope Africans?
I think what you mentioned as far as the brands not wanting to be a part of it, that just means that they're not the right brands for you. What we found with Dope Africans is putting in front of them statistics. A lot of brands, they respond to that. They respond to what Masa mentioned as well. Because we live in a social media age, our first event had a lot of influential people that tweeted, celebrities, et cetera, that helped push our messaging out, and that made it obviously a little easier to get in the door in regards to brands. But I would say do some research on various brands that you want to partner with and see what they've done in the past as far as Black women, if they supported them, if they sponsored them. Look at other companies and brands that you want to emulate just in regards to that part of it, and you will be able to find, various brands that would want to partner with you because you have something to offer.
Just to build on that just a little bit, because obviously I work with brands every day, and I know the struggle that you're facing with brands that sort of only only want to work in a specific space and only come to you when they want to hit such a niche demographic. I think it's also thinking about how the brand is bigger than the name. How the brand is more than just Black Girl Brunch, and how the reach is more expansive than that, and being strategic and thinking about the brands that have been supportive in the past, but also the brands that need to sort of move forward. And I do think, sort of going back to the idea of allies, it's finding people in these rooms as the spaces start to change that look different and are ready to help move corporations towards something like Black Girl Brunch.
And invite them. As opposed to even asking for the sponsorship
Definitely.
ahead of time, maybe decide on look at 5 local sponsors and just invite them free of charge, have them come, see what it is about, and they'll understand what you're trying to do.
Thank you for all of those fantastic questions. I just want to quickly ask, we only have a little bit left. If I were to ask you, diversity is, just very quickly, on the top of your head, diversity is?
Different perspectives.
Diversity is?
Diversity is us.
Diversity is
She
us.
took
I love
mine.
that.
She took-
Diversity is?
Necessary.
Yes. Diversity is?
Me.
Yes.
Last one standing, Mas.
Diversity is?
We keep it. Diversity is vital to your success.
Absolutely.
Profitable,
I just
actually,
thought
is
of
what
that.
I
I
should have
didn't
gone
know
with.
that.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I want to first thank all of you for just being here and sharing your valuable wealth of information. I learned a lot just being here, and I'm encouraged. And what I'm hoping is that each of you leaves here with a drive to make the spaces that you're in more inclusive. Doing small things can be so powerful. So thank you for joining in the conversation. That means you care, and caring can go such a long way. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference.
And thank you, Brandy.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.